going on with Jimmy Butler for a long time. Is he good in the locker room? Should we trade him? Jimmy Butler is a franchise caliber player, and I don't think any moves will go on with him, or I don't think he'll even be in discussion unless the Bulls completely bottom out.
Yeah, no chance they're moving him, especially with his deal that he's on right now. I agree with you. He's a top 10 player, and I'll say that because of his start to this season. I wouldn't be saying that if he was having a similar season to last year, but he's clearly elevated his game early on this season. Maybe thanks to Dwayne Wade being there, or maybe getting out of Derek's shadow a little bit might have helped. But yeah, I mean, he's great defensively. He can get whatever he wants, has a good mid-range, can hit a three every once in a while. He kind of does it all. And I kind of agree with you. I would maybe put him third in the East behind Kyrie and LeBron. I like DeRozan and Kemba Walker and those guys, but just I don't think they're on the same level as Jimmy.
I'll put Jimmy above Kyrie.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I'll put Jimmy above DeRozan too.
I think DeRozan, he's having these crazy scoring nights. He's not that guy consistently. He'll come down, so I could see that.
Offensively, DeRozan and Jimmy are very similar players.
Yeah.
DeRozan lives in the mid-range. He loves the mid-range game. However, you got to look at the other side of the ball. I think Jimmy's a better defender than Kyrie and DeRozan, which is impressive because there's a lot of guys in this league that have an identity either as a defensive player or an offensive player. You don't get that many great two-way players in the league. You think of guys like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron, Chris Paul's a good defender. Guys like that who are two-way players. And then there's Jimmy Butler's in that conversation.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson is another one. I won't forget about him.
Yeah.
He's a good two-way player. But to do that consistently, night in, night out, that's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
For me. And that's why I think he's kind of above DeRozan and Kyrie in that second spot at this point.
I'll say, let's see if he can kind of keep up this pace. I mean, obviously he's not going to be scoring 35 points a night and maybe not keep up this 26 points a game average. But let's just see if he can have the same effect on the team all season. And obviously this team is not going anywhere without Jimmy being that catalyst behind it. So a lot is riding on him.
Absolutely. I mentioned Hoiberg earlier and his improvement. He's been improving, but there are still some issues that I want to talk about with Hoiberg. Mm-hmm. Hoiberg has a real difficult time subbing offense for defense or defense for offense in late game situations. You'll see him in the second half of games getting outcoached a lot of the time because halftime is all about adjustments, who's going to make necessary adjustments to win the game. Hoiberg struggles with that. And his after timeout plays. Dear Lord.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that yesterday.
His ATOs are awful. Usually after a timeout, Thibodeau was so good at this, drawing up good plays after timeouts. That was
probably his biggest positive. It was his out of timeout plays.
And Hoiberg is just not that guy.
He's the opposite.
I mean, as a guy known for his offensive sets, I would think that he would have something better up his sleeve. But so far, a lot of ISO ball early on after timeouts.
Yeah.
A lot of turnovers even.
Well, we saw yesterday, just on the inbounds play, they had nearly a 5-second call. They called a timeout. Then they came back, got a 5-second call. That's all you kind of need to know. So
ATOs, man, drive me nuts. Fred's still learning. I'm giving him that, and I like how he's a player's coach. The players seem to like him a lot more this season than last season.
He's clearly gelling with the guys way more than last year.
Because they're winning. And I think Dwayne Wade has a big thing to do with that.
Yeah.
It gets old when soft-spoken Fred Hoiberg is yelling at you all the time. Not really yelling at all, but telling you this.
Loudly
speaking.
Speaking at you.
I don't know. He's talking at you. Jimmy Butler last year calling him out, need to be coached harder, blah, blah. We've all heard that narrative. But this year he has a guy in Dwayne Wade, and probably Jimmy as well, just calling guys out for him.
Yeah.
Players respect other players for the most part, especially if you're winning, and especially if you have rings. Dwayne Wade has rings. So that's been a huge help to Hoiberg to have Dwayne Wade kind of be...
Yeah, like, that signing is good for a couple reasons. Not only because of his play and him being just a great player overall, but like you said, like, just the presence in the locker room. And, you know, that guy has way more experience than anyone in that locker room. And he's had success everywhere his whole career. So, I mean, it's great for this team to get a guy like him. And we've talked about this at length already, but, you know, it's good to reiterate it again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We'll see what the Bulls do with the rest of their circus trip. They have Denver on Tuesday, and then I believe Philly on Friday.
Are they 1-1? 2-1?
Who? The Bulls on the circus trip?
Yeah.
Their only loss is to the Clippers.
Okay.
So they only have one loss on the circus trip so far, which is
good stuff.
They already have 4 wins on the circus trip. They're 4-1.
Oh, they have 4. Okay, wow.
4-1.
Good stuff.
We said before going in, 500 on a long road trip like this is great. They will be one game above 500 automatically.
I think this team is like slowly winning people over game by game.
It is. A lot of us, the doubters,
including me, and I was excited about this season, but you know, I still had doubts in my head that but yeah, I've seen it all over the place. People are starting to buy in a little bit.
Yeah.
But
well, we'll talk some more Bulls later. Shameless plug here. Make sure to check out Bulls Conf for sure.
Yeah.
And we're looking for some help. So if you're interested, shoot me a direct message. The Blackhawks also talked about their circus trip before they went up to Canada. And I think they need to get out of Canada.
Yes, please.
They're 2-2 currently. They had a comeback win against the Canucks where Hossa netted the OT winner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about him already last week and how good he's been. They were down 3-0 in the third period, rallied back, forced overtime after a goal that was called off, that offsides call.
Just a little questionable.
It was very close.
Very close, yeah.
But that's the new rule.
That's the game right now.
Then Hossa netted one on a kind of a weak shot.
Weak shot, but he screened it perfectly. So he couldn't see it. And, yeah. Probably the best game of the year. I mean, not as, like, a performance-wise, just in terms of entertainment value.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime you come back from 3 goals and win in overtime, people are going to want to watch that.
They, that entire game, they were winning. Well, not winning, but they were... At least I felt like the pace of play was favoring them the whole game. And even down 3-0 in the third period, I still felt a little hope that they could come back. And, in hockey, when the numbers show one thing, they might not always be in goals. Like, you might have a bunch of shots, but you might not be winning. But it usually evens out by the end of the game, usually. I mean, that doesn't always happen, but in that game, it felt like they were always going to at least go on a run, and like we saw that third period, they just were all over them. And that's kind of that switch they turn on that every Blackhawk fan knows so well. They just can reach that another level, and that's what we saw. We saw it from every player, too. Like, it was a total team effort.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow that game up with a gross loss Monday
Put
night.
it lightly.
Monday night to the Oilers.
Yeah.
5-0. Cam Talbot was in goal for them and had a shutout, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first time I've watched Connor McDavid, like, actually during a game. I've seen highlights.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. The dude is so fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in hockey, this is just, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Guys can be fast, but they might not have the right, like, mental edge, or they might not even have the hands.
Yeah.
They might be just out of control and all over the place. Connor McDavid has everything.
Absolutely.
And oh my goodness, the kid is just so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's one of those hockey players, and you hear this about Wayne Gretzky a lot, and I don't want to make Wayne Gretzky comparisons, but he knows what he's going to do before it happens. Like, if the puck's coming to him, he knows how to beat you before the puck even gets to him. And you saw it tonight. He got a puck at the blue line. I think there was only 2 defenders in front of him.
Forsling was back there.
Yeah, and 2 seconds later, has a great chance out front because he saw this little lane and he can hit it so fast that, how can you stop it too? When you can't anticipate it, and then even if you do, how can you stick him with him with those physical tools? Like, he's special. He's real special.
I believe that was on the first period on the first goal.
Yeah.
Correct? So that was the goal that I saw, and McDavid was at one blue line, and I think Forsling was at the other blue line.
Yeah.
And Forsling was backpedaling. And by the time Forsling turned around, McDavid had already had him beat.
Exactly.
And was just there. Like blue line to blue line.
Yeah.
Insane. The kid is great.
Yeah, and this is our first look at him against the Hawks specifically. I've watched quite a bit of him because I'm a huge fan. Like, I've been a huge fan since he got into the league. But yeah, like he's just so, he's got the edge almost every time. Like, when I was watching tonight, anytime he had the puck, it was a scary situation. And that tells you a lot about a player when he gets a puck and it feels like anything can happen in that time. So
he's got that Patrick Kane feel to him.
Yeah, it does. And he'll be really good for a long time. And he's leading the league in points right now. And I mean, this team, they're not very talented, the Oilers, but it doesn't take a lot with that guy, as we're seeing early on this season.
Yeah, and early on in the season, the Blackhawks' possession numbers were pretty poor, and they were winning games. And now, these past couple, granted, it's on the road, circus trip, hard to win. We both said 500 at the end of this trip would be considered a success.
Yes.
And I think they will be around 500, possibly better. That California swing is tough coming up, but
yeah. They usually play pretty well in California.
They do.
But we can talk about that.
Their possession numbers have been pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're losing games.
Yeah, it's kind of switched. Like, in the start of the season, they were scoring goals on limited chances. Now they're scoring less goals on more chances, which is kind of weird. But, yeah, it's the last, I would say 6 to 7 games, they've outshot their opponent in every game. And they've just had more sustained zone time. Lately, in the last couple games, they've been taking a little more penalties, and the penalty kill woes have kind of come back a little, somewhat. Not as bad as it, not full blown like they were at the start of the season. Which, in a way, kind of contributes to possession numbers and all that stuff too. But yeah, I mean, they're just not capitalizing on as many chances right now. They're still winning games, but they're like the Canucks game probably should have lost. Probably should have lost in Calgary last week, where they were down 2-1. They came back. They're having to come back a lot right now, even with the possession numbers being better. But I guess I wouldn't say Corey has played bad, but he definitely is kind of taken a step back from the month he had. I guess since last week or the last 2 weeks before that.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the penalty kill. What's the reason for it kind of coming back to where it was? Is there one player or one factor that attributes to that?
I would point to the fact that they are not pressuring the point man. Most of the time, the Hawks will give up that point shot. and they know